Did you know Tom Kenny at one point voiced Shaggy? That's right, the voice of SpongeBob, Ice King, Heifer, Dog from Cat Dog, and a bunch of others. He voiced him for the first and only time in the infamous 1996 Burger King commercial that made Casey Kasem, Shaggy's original voice actor, quit due to his veganism.
Like I'm starving, Scoob.
Me too.
Like I'll have 400 kids club meals.
Me too.
I also can't forget the songs. Gone are the bubblegum pop tunes of the past to make way for late 90s alternative rock, performed by bands Sky Cycle and Third Eye Blind, the latter whose hit single, Semi-Charmed Life, peaked at number 4 in the Billboard Top 100. They were contacted to perform the theme song, which is probably one of my favorite renditions. Most of us know it's Terror Time Again, and despite its age, it's very effective. And The Ghost Is Here is just as much of a bop. A year later, both songs will be released on the soundtrack for another Scooby-Doo movie. But they weren't the originals, they were covers by lesser known artists. And wouldn't you know it, it wasn't good.
And it's terror time again. They've got you running through the night.
Recently, it's been announced that Warner Archive is releasing Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island on Blu-ray for the very first time. I'm so excited to get this, but as to be expected, there is a downside. From what I've been told, there aren't going to be any bonus features. And also, it's paired with that mediocre sequel. Return to Zombie Island? Bitch, you better be joking. Hadley Kay is a Canadian voice actor known for roles such as Bakugan, Beyblade, The Raccoons, and he was the voice of Darkheart from Care Bears. But did you know he was also the second person to voice Scooby-Doo? He voiced him briefly after Don Messick's passing, and he was handpicked by Bill Hanna himself. Kay voiced the Great Dane in 2 Johnny Bravo episodes, several commercials, and would have voiced him in a live-action film had Warner Brothers not took over. A fun fact, in Bravo Dooby-Doo, he redubbed over voice actor Greg Burson. That's why you can hear them both in the episode.
Why would a ghost be covered in flowers?
On the Halloween season of 2000, I remember Cartoon Network aired a marathon of Scooby-Doo and Courage the Cowardly Dog episodes called the Scooby-Doo Courage the Cowardly Dog Scare-a-thon. Viewers could call and vote online for who they thought was the scariest dog. I remember who the winner was. It was Courage. This marathon also was promoting the then new Scooby-Doo DTV, Alien Invaders. The segments between the commercials were the most memorable part, having the Mystery Inc. gang interact with Courage and the Bag family as they told ghost stories. It's funny to think they were reunited 21 years later and straight out of nowhere. Also, what's with Scooby's yellow collar, by the way? I know it's an animation goof, but that bugged me for years. Something I wish I could have done in my Zombie Island video was to praise the work of screenwriter Glenn Leopold. But I'll be very brief here. While the whole production of the film was a genuine team effort, I'd say Glenn's contributions were often the glue that held them together. Glenn is a huge Scooby-Doo fan and has been with the franchise since the Scrappy era. And what's funny is the fact that during production of Zombie Island, he initially rejected the idea of real monsters, arguing the guys in mask formula was always a simple, solvable mystery. The horror elements he added to the last third of this movie, and especially the script of Zombie Island, really worked. And it shouldn't be too surprising, considering Glenn is also a big horror fan. Hell, in the 80s he wrote 2 horror films, The Prowler and Too Scared to Scream. Both he co-wrote with Joe Barbera's son, Neil. The songs he wrote are fantastic. The Ghost Is Here, Terror Time Again, the Hex Girl songs. People are still singing and talking about these tunes today. I loved programming blocks growing up, from Cartoon Fridays to One Saturday Morning on ABC. But there's this one marathon block I remember from the early 2000s on Boomerang, called Every Scooby-Doo Ever Made. Originally titled Much Ado About Scooby, it was an all-weekend marathon in October of every episode of every classic Scooby series produced from 1969 to 1991. Now at this point, I knew every HB-era Scooby show like the back of my hand, but still it was pretty cool to see them in order like this. Most notably, What's New Scooby-Doo wasn't seen in the marathon because it was still pretty recent and airing new episodes at the time. If I remember correctly, 2004 was the last time they did this. Do you remember this marathon? When someone references or parodies Scooby-Doo, they always bring up the old man something cliche, specifically Old Man Jenkins.
Old Man Jenkins?
Yeah, old man robot!
It's Old Man Barney Frank!
But if you watch any of the original Scooby cartoons from the Hanna-Barbera era, there was never an Old Man Jenkins or Old Man whatever. There was Mr. Jenkins in the season 1 episode of Where Are You? Foul Play in Funland, and even then he wasn't even the villain. He was the inventor of Charlie the Robot, and he had no idea he went haywire. I don't know where the old man blank came from, but I'm willing to guess the live action movie had something to do with it, with Old Man Smithers. What are your thoughts? One last note, in 2002, Warner Bros. Released his movie on DVD, but the trailers made it look like it was one of the then current Scooby-Doo directed video movies, with most of the clips being used from Zombie Island than the actual film. Yeah, Warner Bros. Loved doing this whenever they ever released older Scooby material back in the day. Seeing how these aired on CN once in a while, did they really think they'd fool us? Have you ever seen a teaser trailer for Zombie Island and noticed scenes that weren't in the movie at all? Were they deleted scenes? Actually, no. I had an email convo with David's Door years ago, and he even gave me this merch as a gift. Anyway, he revealed to me that those scenes were part of an animation test from Mook Animation in Tokyo, as they were one of the 3 overseas studios that did a test for the film, and Mook, being the best, won out in the end. And the footage left over was used in the trailer made by the WB marketing team. More you know. In the season 1 episode of A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Dooed, the culprit of the episode is revealed to be using dolphins at an aquarium for drug smuggling.
Drugs? Yuck!
That's sure not very smart. Drugs can mess you up, even kill you.
It's kind of weird seeing the Scooby-Doo cartoon tackle a real social issue. But then again, this episode came out in the 80s, during the Nancy Reagan Just Say No campaign, and every TV show had to do a very special episode about the dangers of drugs, like marijuana, which is kind of comical today. As the hate gotten bigger, Cartoon Network and Warner Bros. Started to get in on the act. Cartoon Network had a couple of productions that featured Scrappy. Warner, on the other hand, likes pretending he doesn't exist, like not mentioning him at all whenever one of the 80s films were re-released on video, or writing him out completely in revivals and productions where he had a major role.
Well, I guess the gang's all here.
Except Scrappy.
What's a Scrappy?
Ha ha, very funny, motherfucker.
I thought lesbians were good at solving crimes. It's like the one positive stereotype perpetuated by cop shows. On TV shows, the malt shop owner is always a friendly black man or a spicy and meatball Italian.
I know, it's okay. Like the dessert course at an Indian restaurant. Just forget it.
I spit truth without a filter, like every comedian before #MeToo.
Hey! Shut up!
Casey Kase's retirement, who will be the new voice of Shaggy? All the past Shaggys would audition to replace Kasem, but it was Matthew Lillard from the live action films who won the role. Ironic considering he was embarrassed by the films.
If you need to in your retirement years, you can pick up the voice for the future cartoons and things like that.
If it gets that bad, yeah. If I end up going off to do cartoons, if this is the end of me, yeah, I got Shaggy up my sleeve.
I gotta say, he's really good. Not quite an impression of Kasem, but he does make it his own thing. And as much as I love Casey and was glad they were able to keep him as long as they could, you could tell how old he was getting. And it's pretty distracting when you watch some of the later 2000 stuff. Matt Lillard was able to make Shaggy sound hip and young again. I appreciate Matthew for sticking with the character for so long. And for someone who was originally ashamed of the role, I'm glad he had a change of heart and embraced Shaggy and take the character and the role seriously. Matthew, you the man.